Yeah, I'm not going to get an Oscar anytime soon. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for the organizers for all the work it takes. It takes work to make music, it takes work to set up chairs, it takes work to organize thoughts and minds. And that's actually one of my themes today. So I am also grateful for all the work that everyone has done to bring this together. And of course, graduates. I am especially grateful and impressed by the work that you have done. There's a lot of times when it seems like the work will never end. And here is an ending point, but one of my themes is that the work is really never ending. We're going to open up some more work for you to do, and God has more things for you to do, and that is work that you're given grace to accomplish. So I have one more piece of work I would like you all to do. I'm all about the experiments, right? And so I want you to do an experiment. But don't worry, you don't need goggles. This is a thought experiment. And I want you to imagine, and this is how Einstein actually got his start. He did a thought experiment while he was working an entry-level job. And so it's all open to you. So for our experiment, I want you to imagine that there is a mirror between us. Okay, I want you to imagine that I am your reflection, you are my reflection, and we're in a mirror. We're all wearing black robes, and so that helps the illusion keep its place. So if I am your reflection, I'm going to nod my head, and what do? You go ahead and do it. You nod your head, okay, great. We're doing the exact same motion. If I raise my right hand, I want you to raise your left hand. This is not in the court of law. We got to do the experiment right. We got to follow the rules. Reflection. Okay, so I raise my left hand, and now you raise your right hand. I'm not going to make you swear an oath or anything like that, but you see how it's something different between nodding and between raising your hand. Why is that? I want you to think about that. That's the experiment. It's done. Thank you for participating. Science and the whole life in general is about you participating, so thank you for doing that. It's time to write up our results. So I want you to focus on the fact that our motion in nodding matched our motion in raising hands was reversed. Why does a mirror seem to reverse left and right, but doesn't actually reverse up and down? How does it know? The mirror is a flat plane in that direction. So I'm actually asking, why does it do that? Because it's a little bit of a puzzle. So I'd like you to develop a hypothesis. Maybe some of you from physics, I know Dr. Lindbergh, you know. But turn to your neighbor and just give her an explanation for why nodding vertically is different from waving horizontally. I'll give you a second to hypothesize. And I don't know, it's actually just fine. I could quiz the platform party, but like I said, by the way, if you already know this, if you learned it from Dr. Lindbergh, then perhaps you can do level 2. Why does a camera obscura flip vertically, but not horizontally? So think about that. So when I first asked this question of myself, my first hypothesis, what I would have turned and said was wrong. I said, I'm biologically focused, and so I said, we have 2 eyes that are horizontal, right? And if you said that, congratulations, you're in good company. You're wrong with me, okay? But there's a simple experiment that you can test that. You can close one eye. The vertical doesn't flip. You can use a camera lens. You can turn your head on the side so your eyes are vertically aligned. Horizontal still seems to be flipped, and vertical still seems to be the same. So could it be gravity? No, what it really is, what you have to do is you have to do the same thing Einstein did. What Einstein did is he thought of himself, he took himself out of himself, and he put himself in the shoes of a light beam. Think like light. Light is what is touching the mirror between us. And so you got to think about how the light is transformed, not how you are transformed. And the fact of the matter is the mirror makes light undergo a symmetry transformation. Okay? And that's literally one of the words that we use for it. The light can reflect, and it can double back on itself. Light can superimpose on itself in a way that your body cannot, as matter. What you interpret it, left and right, because you are bilateral symmetric, you assume that when you see the mirror and you see the light reflected back at you in the Z direction, You assume that you've rotated in the plane of the way that bodies usually work. You sort of make an assumption that there's another body in the mirror and that it has rotated. What has happened is the light has reflected in the direction that you don't ordinarily think of. So you have to think about light from its perspective. So when you look in the mirror and you see your nose, the light from your nose has doubled back on itself. It's like it's been squashed and pointing back at you. When you look at your west hand, like the people in the back, my west hand is still your west hand. East hand is still your east hand. The light does not change in that direction. The light changes in the north-south direction from the way that we are. So you got to think about light, and you got to think about the way that's different from the way that you are. The light is transformed, and the real transformation is in the third dimension from the two dimensions that you're thinking of. So light is useful to think about because, do you know light is a creature? Sort of reserve that for biological things, but all creatures of our God and King includes light. We are also creatures, and so we think of light naturally. Light affects us. It's nice to be standing out in the light on a day like this. And God knows this. And God says, think of him as you think of light. James 1:17 says, God's light is so full and pure, it does not even cast a shadow. This is true light. So what we know about science from light might tell us something about God. We've got to be a little careful. You can't just say anything you want. But God is speaking to us in the way that light is. And so here's a few things from science. Light never decays. So light is the closest thing to eternal that we can touch in this universe. Light has no mass, yet it has momentum. You can make a pendulum move by shining light on it in a pattern. It can eventually make it swing. Light superimposes so that its colors add the brightness, while matter always insists on its own place so that its colors add the darkness. But even this darkness is not a presence in itself. It's merely the absence of light. Depending on how you look at it, light will move like a particle, or maybe it will move like a wave, or if you don't look at it in the right way, it can be both for a time. Light is the fastest creature in the universe. There's a speed limit to the universe. Light cannot be outrun. Now, if you try to approach the speed of light, there's some weird things that'll happen. Space-time itself will distort as you start to approach the speed of light. And so all of this is, light is amazing. And it's got these aspects that we know from science, including Einstein sitting in his chair, putting himself in light's shoes in a thought experiment. So light follows rules, and these laws of light govern its transmission, reflection, refraction, diffraction, absorption, and scattering. And if you want to go into physics, you can find out about all those things. But George MacDonald said that these laws of light are the waving of God's garments. Waving so because he is thinking and loving and walking inside them. No one has seen God, but we can catch the hem of his robe. We can catch a glimpse of his glory in the eternity, the purity, and the unsurpassable velocity of light. We can even glimpse the Trinity in light superimposability. So these glimpses, they were all summed up not in an experiment, but in Christ. He's the creator who took the form of a servant, a creature, and he dwelt among us. God reached down to us as one who was from the beginning, which we have heard, which we have seen with our eyes, which we have looked upon, which our hands have handled. The one who said, "Let there be light," also took on matter. And his material works, his work on the cross, those let us see who God is precisely. And so the brother of Jesus, Jesus had brothers, and one of his brothers actually wrote us a letter. I've already quoted it. It's Brother James. And James says that earthly matter can be filled with this heavenly light, but you can't be just a hearer. In terms of light, you can't be just a seer, you must be a doer. One scientist called this science's favorite verse, that you must be a doer of the word and not a hearer only. Because it says you can't just think about a hypothesis, you've got to do the experiment and find out if your hypothesis is wrong. If you don't, James says you are in danger of forgetting something very important. Anyone who listens to the word but does not do what it says, does not do the experiment, is like someone who looks at his face in the mirror and after looking at himself, goes away and immediately forgets what he looks like. C.S. Lewis writes of this. Someone who forgets who she is until we have faces. Queen Orual, she occupies herself with her career. She neglects her real self. At this point, she says, I locked Orual up inside me and laid her asleep as best as I could, somewhere deep down inside me. She lay curled there. It was like being with child, but reversed. The thing I carried in me grew slowly smaller and less alive. She forgot who she was. But after many years, Orual returns to her real self. This is a bit of a spoiler, but it's C.S. Lewis, so you gotta figure there will be redemption in it, okay? Does anybody have read that book? If you know how it's revealed, she does the work of writing. She writes a book. She says, I could never be at peace again till I had written this book. It burned me from within. It quickened. I was with book as a woman is with child. Needless to say, she couldn't do this by calling up ChatGPT. She had to do the work of writing herself. And there's the work and the experiment. But that book was not enough. There's nothing harder than learning how to receive. It's only when Orual rewrites her first draft that she turns and changes. René Girard said that every first draft is a lie, and we must redraft to find the truth. After cleaning house, throwing away her first drafts, Orual moved toward the light. There is literally a second book in the book that you read about what her new perspective is. James says, to receive this kind of transformation, you must look into the perfect law of liberty. The Greek verb he uses here, parakipsis, means to gaze intently with effort, intensity, and work. One translation reads, continue to study these truths from God. So you thought the studying was over? In a sense it is, but also life is going to test you in a way that is beyond what I can test you in the classroom. Haven't you had some days where you were physically tired from studying? You're like, why am I so tired? I've been sitting here all day. That's because it's real work. It's physical work. Your neurons are pushing things in a certain direction to push bad ideas out and to unify the good ideas. That's what it takes to look into the perfect law, the parakipsis. This weird word, it's only 5 times in the New Testament. 3 of those times are in resurrection chapters, Luke 24 and John 20. Peter, John, and Mary, all 3 of them, lean down in parakipsis. They gaze through the open door of the empty tomb. Peter and John, you know what they see? They see folded grave clothes. Mary sees something more. She sees 2 angels, one at the head and one at the feet of the burial slab, like the cherubim on each side of the Ark of the Covenant. This looking doesn't solve everything. It's true, but it's not complete. At first, it feels worse. Mary is still crying. She can't even see straight. She turns, and she sees someone. Maybe it's the gardener. She's still thinking in earthly patterns. She's not thinking in heavenly patterns. This body in the mirror must be rotated because it must be matter. But this is light. You've got to think like a light beam. Then Jesus calls her name, and then she knows the truth. She stands transformed at that moment by love itself. Paul tells the Corinthians, whoever turns to the Lord, as Mary turned at the empty tomb, is mirroring the Lord's glory, transformed into the same image from glory to glory. And this transformation, it is a turning, like a symmetry transformation of light in a mirror. But it's more than that. It is like the chemical transformation. I've got to get some chemistry in here. When sodium and chloride, they're 2 toxic elements. They combine to make something life-giving, the salt of the earth, sodium chloride. But it's more than that. It is a transformation like a new birth, the growth of a child in her mother's womb, like a Floriwa. But it is still more than that. It is new creation, and it echoes through all that is made. And that's why I can talk about light, and we can be talking about God. As you step out to this next stage of light, look for these things. Gaze into these things. Work to receive this transformation. It is already accomplished and finished for you, but there is still work to be done that you can do to receive it. Peer through the open door of the empty tomb and listen for your name. Reflect on all this. this nature and this grace, this science and this faith, you will be transformed into who God made you to be as you leave this place for the place He has prepared for you, the places you'll go. As you go, may the Lord bless you and keep you. May He make His face shine upon you with perpetual, transformational, uncreated light. Thank you.